Hello again and welcome to the programme.
In today's documentary, we find out about endangered species, animals which are under threat of extinction.
We also find out about a successful project to reintroduce a species which had become extinct in the UK, the short-haired bumblebee.
I wonder if there's a long-haired bumblebee too.
Oh, there is, I checked, but they're not extinct yet.
We're experiencing the greatest loss of animal species since the dinosaur era. Previously, these extinctions were caused by catastrophic natural events, such as meteor showers and volcanic eruptions. Now, scientists predict that we will lose half of all species on Earth in the next 100 years. And regrettably, the loss is our own fault. Climate change, habitat destruction, the introduction of invasive species, and poaching have accelerated the number of extinctions to as many as 10,000 in a single year. There's so much to regret, from the disappearance of the dodo in the 19th century to America's eastern cougar that died out as recently as 2012. Scientists have documented the scale of the problem in a global report called the Living Planet Index. It shows that the number of mammals, birds, and fish on Earth has declined by more than half in the past 40 years. Dr. Robin Freeman from the Zoological Society of London is one of the authors of the report. He tells us about what should be normal losses versus what is happening today.
Recently, scientists have begun to estimate normal rates of extinction, and what they found is that for every million species on Earth, we expect one of those to go extinct every year. However, that, in comparison to current rates of extinction, is tiny. So current rates of extinction, we estimate for every 1 million species on Earth every year, we expect 73 species to go extinct. Largely, we think that's down to human impacts, so things like habitat degradation, but also increasingly things like climate change.
So if we were to look back in 100 years' time, what would be the biggest regret we are likely to have?
One of the things that's very hard to get at is which of these species are the most important, or which species we'd be most concerned about losing, because there's a whole range of reasons that we might want to conserve these species, both from their iconic status, so things like tigers are things that we all recognise and we all want to preserve, down to the biodiversity in the tropics or in freshwater, where there may be species that might have benefits for us in the future.
Reversing the damage that has already been done won't be easy.
What we critically need to do is to stop that degradation, whether that means individually consuming less or bringing governments together to stop things like habitat loss and deforestation. These are the things that we need to focus on.
There are, however, some success stories where species are being saved, such as the short-haired bumblebee. This bee became extinct across much of Europe in the 1980s. Thankfully, a small surviving population was discovered in Sweden. Now, scientists have been reintroducing these very rare bees from Sweden back into England. Dr. Nikki Gammons is in charge of the project. She tells us why the bumblebee became extinct in the UK.
Over the last 60 years in the UK, we've lost 97% of our ancient wildflower meadows. This has had a massive implication on many of our bee species because they need the wildflower areas to get their food, to collect the pollen and nectar. 2 of our bumblebees have gone extinct and 7 are classed as very, very rare and threatened.
But why should we regret the loss of such a small insect?
The extinction of one of our bumblebee species can have a massive impact on many different things within our ecosystems. Of course, there's pollination of many of our agricultural crops, so many of our soft fruits, many of our vegetables are all pollinated by our bees. For this reintroduction to be successful, we must recreate wildflower habitat. So what we do in this area is we work with over 70 farmers to recreate, restore and improve the management of wildflower areas.
It's a race against time. Many animals are now under grave threat. How many more losses must we suffer before we make a commitment to turning this trend around? We may well regret it if we don't.
It's unbelievable how fast species are disappearing, up to 10,000 every year.
And it's mainly due to human activity, habitat degradation such as deforestation, poaching or illegal hunting of endangered species, and climate change.
As we heard, the extinction of just one species can have serious consequences.
The extinction of one of our bumblebee species can have a massive impact on many different things within our ecosystems. Of course, there's pollination of many of our agricultural crops, so many of our soft fruits, many of our vegetables are all pollinated by our bees.
So pollination by bees is essential to food production.
If governments don't act to protect these endangered species, we'll all regret it. Our grandchildren may never get to see elephants or tigers.
Yes, that would be terrible.
Well, let's move on to regrets in other areas of government. We asked our international friends, are there any decisions made by your government that a lot of people regret in your country?
The law that New Zealanders most regret is the immigration law that allows people to buy their way into the country. If you have over $100,000, you're allowed to come and live in New Zealand. However, what we really need are people with skills, not necessarily cash.
People in Australia today regret the way immigration and people coming in from less fortunate countries are treated. There are a lot of people who are held in camps outside of Australia waiting to come in, and they're not treated well.
I think something that Canadians regret is definitely how we have treated the Native Americans. It's an appalling history, actually. And it's something that we are actually quite ashamed of as a nation, I think.
There's a decision which was made way back by Pandit Nehru when India got independence, dividing India on the basis of language. I think linguistic division of India was very wrong.
The repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, which was a provision that kept commercial banks and investment banking separate. And I think it was the cause of the 2008 crash.
We regret the cutback on public spending. We need more money in our National Health Service, more money in education. So we'd really like to see that change in the future.
The Australian regretted the way her country treated immigrants today, while the Canadian said her country regretted how they had treated the Native Americans in the past.
The American mentioned the repeal, la revocación, of an act which separated different kinds of banks and said this led to the financial crash.
And the Englishwoman talked about the cutback or reduction in public spending.
Well, now it's time for another episode of That's the USA.
Today, Alex is visiting Jamestown, where the first settlers or colonists lived when they arrived in North America.
He also visits Williamsburg, a wealthy colonial town, which has been preserved as a living history museum.
Hello and welcome to the Old Dominion state of Virginia. Today we're going to visit two of the most historical areas in the United States, Jamestown and colonial Williamsburg. Jamestown is on the eastern edge of Virginia, looking out over the James River. It was established in 1607 when a fleet of English ships arrived to set up a colony in the New World. This is James Fort, a triangular wooden recreation of the fort from 1610. Historical interpreters in costume recreate daily life and activities here in the fort. So Brian, what was life like here for the early colonists?
The early colonists here are going to be facing a lot of challenges, not least which something as simple as feeding the colonists here. With no existing infrastructure, much of the food they'll be relying on has to come all the way from England. Bad water, waterborne illnesses like dysentery, that sort of thing early on, are going to make just simple survival here a challenge.
So what might they have regretted about coming to settle here?
Well, they run into a very different world than what they're accustomed to back home in England. The summertime climate especially, very hot, very humid. And they came here hoping for economic wealth, and they end up more often than not simply fighting for their survival.
So do you think either the Native Americans or the settlers regretted any of their actions or behavior toward one another?
Well, certainly by the end of 1609, the two powers have ended up in open war with each other. And over the next 4 years, you've got a lot of things done by both sides that to this day remain an uncomfortable subject for people from both perspectives. Both the Powhatan chiefdom and the English colonists committed some acts that both sides remain uncomfortable about to this day.
This is Jamestown Glass House, where you can see master glass blowers hard at work. Modern artisans use hand-blown glass techniques, very similar to those used 400 years ago. So now I'm here with Kyle at the Jamestown Glass House. So, Kyle, could you tell me a little bit about the history of glass blowing?
Sure. Glass blowing started here at Jamestown in 1608 as a business venture, started by the Virginia Company of London to export glass back to England.
Why glass blowing?
Well, this area had all the natural resources to make glass, the raw ingredients to make it, sand, oyster shells, and more importantly, they had plentiful fuel here, lots of hardwood trees.
Okay, well, can you show me a few things?
Absolutely.
All right. Wow, that's really beautiful. About 8 miles from Jamestown is the charming and picturesque colonial city of Williamsburg. From 1699 until 1780, Williamsburg was the capital of Virginia, British America's wealthiest and most populous colony. Today, the city's historic area houses the world's largest living history museum, which recreates the old capital. Another great thing you can catch here are the live interactive shows that happen throughout the day. Actors in period dress give us a glimpse into all the ups and downs of colonial life, and the whole city is their stage.
Self-evident that all men are created equal.
You know what? I think I found the best way to get around town. See you next time in Connecticut. Let's go!
So Williamsburg was the place to be for the rich colonists in the 18th century, but life was tougher for the early settlers.
Wasn't the glass blowing beautiful, though? Creating glass from sand and shells, it's like alchemy.
Look at the souvenir they gave Alex. Jamestown, 1608 to 2015.
Well, that's it for today. We'll see you soon.
Bye.